Hey everybody, Film Brown here at the Movies with Film. Down here in the Crypt of Horror, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a film that I found to be quite fascinating. Not necessarily only in the film itself, and the film is quite good. FP1 Doesn't Answer is the name of the film, 1933, but also a little bit of historical background about this film. This film was shot in 3 different versions. And the reason for that was that it was going to be released internationally. 1932, the German version of this film came out, and it starred a whole different cast, but it had the same crew working on this version and was going to be working on the other versions coming down the pike. 1933, 2 other versions were made that were made in English and in French. Now, a guy named Hartel was the director of all 3 of these films. Different cast. Now, the cast we're going to be seeing highlights Conrad Veidt, which is kind of interesting. Conrad Veidt, a great German silent film star, had already come over to the United States, and he stars in the English version of this thing. So this film has that background to it. Now, you think about it. Why shoot this in 3 different versions, 3 different languages? Well, it comes down to the issue of sound. Now, in the silent days, shoot a film, translate the title cards into any language you want, and you've got international audience. Now, when it comes to sound, okay, you got a problem. You shoot it in a language, you got it in that language. Now, in the early days of film, before the period of dubbing, okay, dubbing really comes in about 32, but it seems that this film here sort of is on the cusp of it, and they haven't had the ability to dub, so they shot it with 3 different casts, and really shot for shot, same film. Now, this wasn't unusual. Laurel and Hardy, for instance, was well known in the early days of sound to make a variety of different versions of their films. Not that they could speak Japanese and Spanish and French and German, but they phonetically were trained to redo their dialogue. Famous case of this also is Dracula. And I just got a chance to see this again just recently with the 2 different versions of Dracula. During the day, Todd Browning shot his English version. At night, Spanish version was made. Whole different cast and different crew in this case. But in this case here, same director. We've got Hartel, Carl Hartel, who's going to be directing all 3 versions of this. Now let's talk about what this film is all about. It's a science fiction film. Now, it might surprise you. It doesn't seem science fiction-y as you watch it, but it's about this sort of this mid-sea transport ship that is going to be able to fuel planes so that they can make that transatlantic flight more easily. And what this FP1 thing is, which is a top secret facility at first, is a big aircraft carrier. Now, they don't call it that, but that's basically what it is. And what it is this large landing deck out in the middle of the sea where planes can come in, land, get refueled, and take off and go off onto Paris or to London or wherever their destination is. Now, the film starts off more as a spy mystery caper with plans being stolen and the whole idea of what this thing is. And Conrad Veidt plays this renowned pilot who is breaking records all over the place, sort of a Lindbergh type of character. And he kind of pals up with this guy who has got the plans to build this FP1. Now, one of the problems when the FP1 is built, that there are some people out there who don't like the idea of this thing being operational. And they want to kibosh the whole thing. So some saboteurs are put on board and can't really go much further than that, but it really causes some problems. And that's why you got that title, FP1 Doesn't Answer. Because at a certain point, things seem like all go, and then whammo, not working anymore. And you got to send some folks out to help them, and that brings in Conrad Veidt to save the day. Well, fun little film. Some of the guys who worked on it, one of the key guys who wrote the screenplay for it, Kurt Siodmak. Now, Kurt Siodmak is also, at that same time period, going to work on a film called The Tunnel, or The Transatlantic Tunnel, a film that we're going to bring you coming down the pike. And later, he's going to come over to the United States and do things like The Wolfman. He wrote the screenplay for The Wolfman. His brother, Robert Siodmak, was a renowned film noir star. So the 2 brothers kind of got into film business and made it good. Siodmak behind the camera for Robert, and Kurt more of a penster. He wrote Donovan's Brain and things like that. I think you're going to have fun with this film. Kind of interesting in the way that it used 3 different versions of the same thing with a different cast, but the same script, same shooting crew, same cameramen, and coming in and making this film. Now, I'm not sure how exactly they did that, whether they like shot a scene in German, then turned around and shot it in English, and then shot it in French. And they released over the cusp of 32 to 33. It's always difficult to know when a film was actually produced, because when it's released, it might be across a time period of January to December to January or something like that. When it was done with Dracula, they'd shoot at day and then at night. Now, I'm not sure with this one, but certainly they were using the same mentality. Now, coming down the pike, I would say in a year from now, and certainly very quickly after this, the need to have to shoot 3 different versions would not be necessary. They would just dub it or subtitle it. Well, folks, we really love coming to you. It's always fun to be out here. I hope that you're enjoying the shows that we bring you. The movies that we have here are of quite select variety. We try to bring you the best that we can within our capability. Make sure, too, that you know that we have that email out there. If you have a reason to write us, if you've got some kind of request, we can't satisfy all requests, but we certainly can try. And or if you have questions, get a lot of people who write questions, I'd be happy to hear from you. All of us would be happy to hear from you. I consider you all a part of my family, and you are all important to me. And if there are things that you want to see, or things that you don't want to see, or things that bug you, or things that really, well, really turn you on, write me about it. We'd all be happy to hear and see what we can do. Well, folks, roll 'em smoking.